also have to work in a long hour, but of course with less salary and of course less responsibility from the company because they are considered as part-time workers. For the migrant workers, Indonesian migrant workers, they are mostly their status is not workers but kensuse or trainee, and through this way these trainees they are considered to be learning something from Japan while they're actually only work. And because they are trainees, they have salary standard below the standard of Japan. Like for example, people who work in animal farming or agricultural farming, they only get 90,000 yen per month, and it is still reduced with tax, insurance, which are not being responsible of the company because they are trainees and not workers, and so they get maybe only around 50,000 yen per month, which they still need to send to their families. The other point that I think is shared problems between workers, Japanese workers and migrant workers, is about the women's participation in work, where now we know that there's an encouragement for women's participation to work. But although this is good maybe for feminist movement and to have more women to speak up their mind, but we should also be considered carefully about the relation between the third world women who come and serve the family as a domestic migrant workers. And so it's not only about the equality of women and men, but also the equality between classes that we should consider. What is the social impact or emotional impact? I'm interested to call it as an emotional impact for everyone in these problems that we have, that is the gap in salary and working overtime, and then people don't have any more leisure time. First, busyness makes you don't have time to meet new people. Busyness makes you tired and you have no time for love. Maybe love is something sounds banal, but maybe also love that has made the lack of love that also has made the inverted pyramid population, because busyness creates social alienation, and people are more interested to work and be committed to work rather than to be committed with another person. And the desire for love are now also commodified by capitalism, where leisure time is now manifested through consumption. So when you have free time, all you want to do is just consume. Maybe you go to shop or buy stuffs or do things that maybe make you happy, but then again tomorrow you have to work. The need for love itself also have been commodified, where if you want to be loved, you can just go maybe to maid cafe, or you can go to the crying hotel. There's just recently a new phenomenon in Japan. It's called crying hotel, where if you, as a woman, if you feel sad and you don't have a shoulder to cry on, you can go to this hotel and have a guy for you to cry on. So there's a lot of these types of commodification of love, where when we lack of the sense of touch, feelings, you now can buy it. So the idea of marriage also now doesn't seem to as a creative affinities between people, but love, family now seem only as a productivity. Like for example, I heard one example when I went to a presentation. There's an intern who want to enter Toshiba company, and during the interview, she was asked whether she wants to marry with one of Toshiba engineer. So the way the company wanted to have Toshiba family is also like some kind of thinking of family in terms only of producing another workforce. So with this problem of problem of no time for love and no time for leisure, people are now don't have space to express themselves because free time are now used only to consume something. And of course, leisure time is different from killing time, because in leisure time you can do something that you really like and something that can make you express yourself. But in killing time, it's different because maybe you can just play games or go shopping and yeah, just wasting your time rather than really do what you really like that you cannot do maybe in your working time. So what I'm suggesting here is that leisure time should be a space for producing subjectivities. I'm quoting Rancière here, who wrote in Proletarian Nights, where he talked about the struggle of 19th century workers, where they, even if they don't have time, they still try to write because it's the way they can produce their own subjectivities, express themselves. And he said, poverty is not defined in the relationship of idleness to work, but in the impossibility of choosing one topic. So leisure time should be something where you can express yourself existentially rather than express yourself maybe economically, because through consumption maybe you can express yourself with the way you dress or the way you hear music, etc., etc. But in leisure time, even if it's painful, maybe, for example, if you have to write or do your work as an artist, besides doing your job in your working time, even if leisure time is also can be a busy time, it's actually a space to reclaim your free time and a struggle to produce yourself outside the capital time. So what kind of approaches can cultural workers do? First, of course, reclaiming leisure time for everyone. And in terms of activism, well, of course, we need to still improve the condition of migrant workers in terms of their basic needs, like a good fair salary and then fair working time. But of course, we also need to think them not only as economical being but also existential being. So as a cultural workers, I'm interested to think how to give the migrant workers or everyone the right to think rather than just the right to live. Because if we just keep on thinking about the right to live, we actually just keeping the division of labor, where the people who are unskilled will be always considered as unskilled, even if they got their basic rights. But how to think that actually intellectual labor and manual labor is actually something, a myth that we create. How about if everyone actually have the ability to think? Like this phrase towards the equality for the rights to think, not only just to live, is something that inspire us to make a project in Hong Kong where we make a mobile libraries for the migrant workers, in Hong Kong, and every week we do a discussion with them to discuss about Indonesian classic literature and talk about philosophical stuff. So usually when we approach migrant workers problem, we always approach them in terms of again economical problem, like how to get them fair rights, etc., etc. But we often forget that these people are actually also a thinking being, and they also want to be considered to be an intellectual. So it's very interesting in Hong Kong that many of them write, and they write a lot. Even most of them, they work as domestic workers, and during their free time they write in their cell phones. Sometimes they write poems. There's even one migrant workers who write a novel in their phone. So I think it's this kind of practice that's been done by these migrant workers. Also, we need also to look at this, and not only just to think about their bad condition. And I think free time is only can be productive if it's collective. The problem of migrant workers in Indonesia, Indonesian migrant workers in Japan, is because they are very dispersed, and if they work in animal farming and agricultural farming, they have random holidays, and it makes them cannot meet with other people. They cannot meet with the Indonesian community, and that's why also until now they don't have union, because they cannot meet people. So it's very also important to create a collectivity. How to create collectivity with this condition? Is it perhaps through online? I don't know, maybe radio or Facebook page. It can be another form of collectivity, because it's very leisure time can only be productive if it could create a collective time where everyone can express themselves. Yes, so I think that's my presentation so far. I would like to also hear from Jung, who is work as a migrant worker but also an artist, and of course from Shitakamori, who of course have more knowledge on the condition of work and artists in Japan.
Can I ask one question? Is it
Yes.
good time? I was wondering if the Indonesian workers in Hong Kong, they go there, and do they settle a family there? Do they bring in what other things I observed in the Turkish and Kurdish community, that they bring their spouses from their home country, and they have a kind of strange status, and they have children. So this is also another step of the problem, I think.
Well, 90% of the Indonesian migrant workers in Hong Kong are women, and they don't bring their family because there's a strict regulation by agencies. So yeah, and there's no job for men in Hong Kong. So mostly they are women, and a lot of them are divorced because they have a long distance relationship and the guy cheat. But in Hong Kong, many of them work for a long time, in one family, like for 8 years. So there's also a good harmony between the employers and the employee. While in Japan, these trainees, the Indonesian migrant workers in Japan, and I think also the upcoming law for the domestic workers, they can only work for three years. This law actually make some kind of short contract, which would make the possibility to make a collective more hard, because you can only be in the country for 3 years. So you cannot have a long-term engagement with the society or with the other people that work with you. Yeah, so it's also a problem.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think everyone can jump in for questions before we start to the next one.
Does anyone else have any questions at all?
So what's the biggest foreign migrant workers group in Japan?
I think Philippines.
I saw from the demography, I think it's Chinese,
Chinese.
Koreans, and then third people.
Brazilian.
America Latin.
Yeah, the thing is, kind of Korean residents came earlier. I mean, around the Second World War. So there's kind of first migrant, and the Chinese are sort of the next. And the thing is, Indonesians, the Philippines are seen as the newcomers in Japanese society. So they're slightly different.
So more or less, how many would you estimate like Chinese or Korean workers? Is it like
The kind of foreign residents in Japan are about 2 million at this moment.
foreign
So
residents?
for foreign residents as a whole, and I think the, kind of more than half of them are Chinese and Korean. And I think that in Indonesia probably 20,000, 10,000, 20,000. So they're not so many as small.
Yes, but there's a new agreement, I think, between since few years ago there's an agreement between Indonesian and Japanese government where Indonesian want to import more trainees
Yeah.
to Japan, but yeah, under the name of trainees, so rather than a worker.
Yeah, the kind of training program is very notorious because I have this statistics here. Last year, you know how many trainees escaped from the job in Japan? You know that? It's, last year, 2,822 people escaped from the workplace because it's so hard and it's really cheap and also poor condition. And not only Japanese but also sort of international NGO really criticize this program because the government originally said, this is not kind of immigration thing. This is more like a cultural exchange. So what we are doing is to educate the people. That's why we hire people as a sort of training. So it's kind of impartial.
Yes.
That's why we are not paying so much because it's kind of cultural exchange. But that is kind of excuse to import cheap labor force. So this is severely criticized by the UN and other countries, kind of slave labor.
So these people, do you think they tend to stay here and have families here and be a part of the society, or
No,
do
but
they
the training
go
system
back?
basically they have to go back within the 3 years. So they cannot have a family. Well, there is a delegation, they cannot marry.
Kind of very short-term solution to the lack of labor force. And under the trainee category is a kind of circulation of workers, but they're not officially recognized as workers, so don't have the same protection as workers as well. So they're given very low wages and also have to work very long hours, for example. And health conditions and health issues of such people have also been well documented. So Brigitte and I, we attended last week at the National Diet. There was a meeting between the Migrants Network and officials from the Ministry of Labour and Ministry of Finance. And Migrant Network put forward many issues which such trainees and other migrant workers are facing and trying to improve their conditions through direct lobbying in that way.
Although actually the system itself is already wrong, so even if you try to, the system of the training program itself is actually already very deceiving.
So
It's
let's-
quite similar, the situation of young Japanese worker in the company,
because sometimes they do work with a very cheap salary and they need to work for a lot of time. Then so a lot of young workers quit, but company doesn't care because they can hire the other young. So it's quite simple. So when we look at the change in the dispatch law this year, so that there used to be the 4-year law in which if you work for the company as dispatch worker for more than 3 years, then you should be offered the full-time position within that company. But now this law has been changed so that that position can be filled by a dispatch worker continuously as long as the actual worker themselves changes every 3 years. So again, it's trying to create this kind of revolving system in which workers are used for a short term and then given over to another worker and so on. But I think Brigitte also touched upon an important point that although we have many issues in terms of workers' rights and human rights, we should also look at the identity that we identify outside of just our working position as well, and to create other subjectivities. So I think that's something that maybe John would also like to touch upon in his presentation, that how we identify, for example, as artists, how we present ourselves as an artist, and what other jobs we hold at the same time in order to fulfill our activity as an artist, and how we identify between the two. So maybe some artists would prefer to hide their day job, perhaps, and present themselves as an artist to society, whereas others maybe hold both positions in equal value. So I'm also interested in John's position that you often present yourself directly as a migrant worker and an artist, so you hold both identities in your position in society. So maybe you'd like to take on from now?
You're not thanking anyone?
一つ持っていく終わります少し大丈夫ですか少しでいいですか
Thank you for and dislocate15. So I will expound more on the particular issue on subjectivity. And before I start, if we have Wi-Fi devices, we could turn on our Wi-Fi, and then you will find a Wi-Fi network there named Osaken Library. So it's a off-the-grid internet. It's a small internet where we can share our files if we want to share files as we discuss. So my presentation is entitled Transmutality of People Reported Form. So my name is Jong Paeres. I work at a supermarket in Shibuya-ku. I have been living here in Japan. I've been living my working time here in Japan for over 10 years now. And I'm from the Philippines, and everyone in here doesn't know what Philippines is. So Philippines was a colony of Spain in the 16th century, and it was named after King Philip II. And eventually it became an official narrative name of a nation state in Southeast Asia. However, geographically, It is an archipelago of 7,100 islands located in the far south of Japan and South China Sea to the west. So I was born in one of these islands. The island is named Leyte. So before its colonial name, its present national narrative of this archipelago was once an epitome of what we now call today in scientific research as translocality. So from being a country, a nation state, it was once before an archipelago and a translocal network of islands. So let me define what is translocality. According to this geographer, a German geographer, Simon Alexander Pett, translocality is a variety of enduring, open, and nonlinear processes which produce close interrelations between different places and people. So these interrelations and various forms of exchange are created through migration, flows, and networks that are constantly questioned and reworked. So in other words, it could be synonymous to internet. So we're very familiar with internet. It's become the tool of our generation today. So before Southeast Asia was colonized by Western powers, its locality works in the same process as the internet technology works today. By the use of both technology, this is the internet, and this one is another form of internet that probably we don't know, but this is the oldest form of internet. So before Western powers colonized Southeast Asia, this translocality of islands works as the same process as the internet. By the use of both technology known as outrigger canoes or balangay. So this is the boat technology was made during the Neolithic era by the Austronesians, and this is the tool to download and exchange and upload knowledges, identities, and ideas as far as wide as and Easter Islands in Latin America to Madagascar in Africa. So basically just like internet. And we have this archaeologist named Wilhelm Solheim, who made an enormous study on this phenomenal pattern of cultural diffusion. And he termed this as Lusantao Maritime Trading and Communications Network. So it sounds like very technological, the name. So today, a person who is in constant mobility, just like these people, and now this is the metaphor of the ocean where people used to travel. So it's fiber optics now. So anyway, today, a person who is in constant mobility rethinks the idea of home, and definitely home will not be a certain narrative or single culture anymore, but between cultures and places of experiences. For example, as a foreign migrant worker in Japan, affected by both the local condition here, specifically the Fukushima nuclear crisis, and from where I came from, which is basically always in a constant disaster, in a condition of disaster capitalism. So my concern to these localities are superimposed. However, precarious my state of belonging is. So my identity is being born and reborn in between connecting places like water in a stream, constantly flowing as opposed to sedentary forms of identity expressed in nationalist narratives. So I don't consider myself as a transnational. Nike is transnational. I consider myself as a translocal. I belong to a particular place where my experience and memory is in the island of Leyte. Now I'm in Tokyo. And I had this desire to travel from one locality to another. Just like these people from Syria who are ravaged by war. And of course, as a human being, we have this desire to save ourselves from danger. So in the same manner, I also question my subjective narrative, my identity as an artist and as a foreign migrant worker. So 5 years ago, a few months after the nuclear meltdown in Fukushima, my workplace in Shibuya shut down, leaving both part-time and full-time workers unemployed. However, after receiving my unemployment insurance, I decided to go back in Manila, where I studied, where I didn't finish my degree in painting, but eventually I decided to finish it.